Early winter had descended upon Ria Fencinter, Niederlande Rust of Schwanenstadt, mountain pass in Montana, the air thick with frozen mist and the scent of pine. Isaac Hale, a man whose face was hardened by years of battling the land and the elements, consciously turned his back on the comfort and stability of a thriving settlement, a place where a comfortable life had waited for him. His decision was not a sudden impulse but a slowly matured fruit of inner devotion. He was returning to the desolate, impoverished Blackwood camp, the very place where, 2 years prior, his partner, Warren, had died in a cave-in, leaving behind only a promise to build a proper school for the miners, children who were growing up without knowing how to read. Isaac's journey was a deliberate return to a past he sought to redeem. His wagon struggled heavily along the icy trail, every jolt serving as a stark reminder of the price of his vow. Warren, buried beneath the permafrost of Blackwood, had been his only family. Now, Isaac carried not just the memory of his friend, but his unfinished work. Upon reaching the camp, Isaac found it in a state of complete decay. Rickety shacks, rough campfires, an atmosphere saturated with hopelessness and lawlessness. The camp had long ceased to be a place for honest prospectors. It had devolved into a refuge for the desperate and those who profited from the labor of others. Isaac dismounted and began unloading his wagon, not with gold panning tools, but with heavy timber and crates of carpentry equipment, the first tangible signs of his fixed intent. This moment, when his building materials touched the frozen ground of Blackwood, ignited the inevitable conflict, pitting creation against the pervasive destruction. Isaac began his search for the ideal school plot, a level spot, sheltered from the wind, where children could receive their instruction. He immediately felt the heavy, suspicious gazes of the camp's inhabitants settling upon him. They welcomed nothing that did not yield immediate profit or adhere to their brutal code of survival. It quickly became apparent that authority in the camp rested with the Copper Blades Gang, so named for their ruthless control and use of cheap copper, or as their primary currency. Their leader, a taciturn and menacing figure, viewed any organized order as an inherent threat to his absolute command. In the shadows of a dilapidated shack, Isaac noticed a woman whose dress and demeanor sharply contrasted with the surrounding destitution. This was Evelyn Wright, the single educated soul in Blackwood, having arrived for reasons shrouded in mystery, and who currently earned a meager living tutoring a few select children. Evelyn watched Isaac with a cynical curiosity that betrayed a deep weariness with the futility of any effort to improve their world. For the first time in a long time, Isaac saw in someone's eyes more than mere greed or fear. Look that understood the weight of a book but refused to believe in the ultimate power of the pen. Isaac selected his location, a small hill overlooking the creek, offering a sweeping view of the mountains. He began clearing the site, his shovel grating against the frozen earth. This was not merely preparation for construction. It was a silent declaration of war against the prevailing chaos, a challenge that Isaac knew would not go unanswered. The ghosts of the past, embodied by the memory of dead Warren, demanded the fulfillment of a duty. The living ghosts, the members of the gang, demanded its immediate cessation. Isaac, armed only with his resolve, began to lay the foundation. He worked alone, his muscles straining against the harsh mountain air. The structure slowly took shape, only to be challenged by the darkness. Each morning he discovered that the freshly dug post holes had been filled with stones, and his crucial tools had been hidden or deliberately broken. This was not theft. It was pure, demonstrative malice. He understood that his response could not be one of force, but of cunning and unwavering devotion to the process. Isaac did not confront the bandits. He did not engage in verbal exchanges. Instead, he silently repaired his equipment and began the work anew. His quiet tenacity became his sharpest weapon. deeply irritating those accustomed to immediate reaction and swift surrender. Isaac stretched his meager funds to purchase higher quality materials from a distant town, smuggling them in under the cover of night. Evelyn, watching his steadfast labor, began to see him not merely as an eccentric, but as a man who valued honor above immediate gain and personal safety. She did not interfere, yet one evening she left a heavy piece of canvas near his dwindling campfire, a silent provision for him to protect his most vital instruments from the abrasive morning dew. The members of the Copper Blades escalated their pressure, issuing open threats, yet Isaac simply met their gaze. Never wavering from his work, he grasped that the true test of his loyalty was not in fighting for himself, but in silently enduring the blows delivered for the sake of a goal that was owed to another. The construction advanced slowly but resolutely. Isaac had begun raising the walls, and the structure of the schoolhouse was now visibly taking shape. A defiant beacon set against the raw backdrop of the wild mountains. This sight, the palpable threat of order over chaos, provoked the Copper Blades to their most serious action yet. Under the shroud of a dark night, they violently dismantled and splintered a significant portion of the newly delivered timber and planks, scattering the wreckage across the site. In the morning, Isaac looked upon the ruins of his painstaking labor, and for the first time, a shadow of genuine despair crossed his eyes. He sat heavily on a rough stone, his back bowed not from physical fatigue, but from the sheer weight of the meaninglessness he felt. His resolve, built on silent endurance, momentarily failed him. Evelyn, witnessing his broken posture, emerged from the concealing shadows. She approached, not speaking a word, but immediately began to gather the salvageable pieces of wood, sorting them for reuse. Her action, hesitant at first, became the narrative's turning point. Her deep-seated cynicism yielded to an inspiration sparked by Isaac's pure, unwavering devotion. She began to assist him regularly, covertly shielding him from the most watchful eyes and using her practical knowledge to optimize the rebuilding process. Their partnership was forged in mutual respect and a burgeoning shared purpose. In this collaboration, Isaac realized that his vow, initially pledged to a dead friend, was now gaining a new, living meaning. He was building for those who remained, for a future symbolized by Montana's hard-won statehood. This profound recognition fortified his will, transforming his solitary debt into a collective responsibility, cementing a deeper bond between the two lonely souls. The school structure neared completion. The timber framework stood tall, only awaiting the final glazing of the windows. This visible, almost completed triumph of order over chaos became intolerable to the Copper Blades. They resolved to deliver a decisive, brutal blow. On a moonless, pitch-black night, the gang surrounded the construction site. Isaac attempted to defend the vulnerable structure, but his solitary fight was futile against their sheer numbers and calculated malice. The scene erupted in a vivid, savage orange light as the bandits ignited the timber frame. Isaac plunged into the rising flames, desperately trying to salvage tools and remaining lumber, but he was dragged out and overwhelmed. He sustained heavy burns and repeated blows, collapsing into the smoldering dirt. The scene reached its crisis. The school, that powerful symbol of hope, was rapidly consumed, transforming into a fiery cross silhouetted against the dark mountain. Evelyn, roused by the acrid smell of burning pine, rushed to the site. She found Isaac severely injured, half suffocated by smoke, lying beside the smoking ruins. His despair was absolute. He believed he had violated his sacred vow, that all his devotion had culminated in meaningless failure. This was the protagonist's lowest point. Standing amidst the ashes, Evelyn understood that the choice now fell entirely upon her, to abandon the camp and seek safety, or to become the voice and the enduring strength that would refuse to let faith in a brighter future perish. Weeks passed. Isaac slowly recovered, with Evelyn tending to him. using their meager medical supplies. His body healed, but his spirit remained fractured. He looked at the ashes and found no fire left in his eyes. He decided he must leave, convinced that his duty to Warren was unfulfilled, and that his presence now only brought suffering to the camp. Evelyn refused to let him abandon his purpose. She led him to the window and pointed toward the hill. During his recovery, she had been quietly galvanized by his sacrifice, mobilizing the few honest miners, the mothers, and even the children. These people, silently and determinedly, had begun clearing the wreckage. In their hands were new logs, salvaged from less guarded stockpiles. She explained to him that his solitary devotion to the dead had awakened a profound sense of honor in the living, and that this effort was now their collective vow. Isaac returned to the hill. He watched as the camp, unified for the first time, built not just a structure, but a community. He approached the leader of the Copper Blades, who stood watching the activity with sullen fury. Isaac did not threaten or accuse. He simply picked up an axe and continued working. His silent, unyielding will, coupled with the unified support of the entire settlement behind him, stripped the gang leader of his power. Lacking local support, the bandits understood their era of dominion had concluded. They retreated, their influence dissolving into the atmosphere of purposeful construction. Months later, as spring fully asserted itself, the schoolhouse stood upon the hill, sturdy, built of stone and hard timber. Isaac and Evelyn stood at the entrance. He had fulfilled his oath, having lost everything only to gain a new life, a new purpose, and a new partner who shared his enduring loyalty to the future. A future symbolized by the rising state of Montana.